Hello everyone, Kurt Olfer here, and welcome back to another episode from Whole Federal Labs. Today we look at the last section of what, again, like I'll say, is conventional acts. We'll talk about the last portion of the acts here in the next video, videos. But we're looking at the last lesson of the acts, which is a grappling one that really comes into the form and fashion right here, that is using somebody's armor against them. Now, I want to stress this a lot, and a little bit of an anecdote here, so my introduction will be a little bit longer than normal. This is an incredibly dangerous play. I do not recommend people try to replicate this at all. At one point in time here, I was actually talking with armorers to see if I could find a way to build a helmet where the visor can come up and down and there's no strap, because historically there were not straps, but there's a perf plating underneath here so that you could stab in the face or do this technique with, or not this technique all the way to its end, but just so we could get to the spot where it's there. It is a very dangerous play. And because of the reconsiderations, like everything that we'll talk about in the video, I tell people, if you're going to do this, if you want to experience this, experience it once, get it out of your system, and then move on. Because this is something right here that is a great way to break your friend's neck. And no one here needs that. So be careful with it when you train with that. Again, like I said, this is about using some of the armor against them in a close clinch. It is in the act section, which tells me at some point in time right here, you've ditched the stuff and we've gotten right into the fight of it all. Once you lose your axe and entangling, grappling, and abrazari become the main focus of what you can and cannot do out there. So this is just another thing that you can use with that. But before we get into the video out here, again, please, if you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, share with a friend out there, and let me know what you're thinking about this or other videos that you might have seen. To my viewers and subscribers, thank you so much as always for stopping by. I always appreciate the comments you leave me here or any message you put out there on social media. I appreciate it. I welcome it. And I'm very grateful for all the opportunities I have to be able to work this with people and learn from you as well. So thank you. With that being the case here, let's take a look at this last grappling play that we see within Fiore's Azza section of the manuscript and how devastating it is to use someone's armor against them in this fashion.
Okay, so this week here we're going to be looking at the last of the, I will say, common acts plays of Fiore's manuscript. And we're going to be looking at one that is especially brutal and nasty, and I do not recommend anyone ever try to do, is the visor rip, as I like to call it. Now, this does come in conjunction of last week's, where, as he says, he strips the axe away, and he gives a great strike to the person's head. And if you don't like it, I'll give you another one, or I'll grab onto you and throw you to the ground. We're going to break this one right here down so we can kind of look at like what anatomically is happening to the person. So he's not actually going to throw me here. He's just going to utilize everything we've talked about before to kind of go into play with this all. And also we're going to see how this may happen with or without an axe play kind of consideration, or how we may find ourselves here in general. So first commentary when it comes down to the visors of the time, you can see a strap that's around my visor right here. That's a modern day safety equipment piece here. Visors did not necessarily have a strap. We know that there were buttons that locked and latched things into place here, but for the most part there was nothing that was strapping around the backside, except for when you talk about like having a bevel that like came up to the person's face and then wrapped around, which as far as my understanding has more to do with jousting and protecting the person's breasts. If they go into the lists on horse. But in most places right here, the visor is something that's possible to get up into place and to attack and to throw the person to the ground. So we're just going to look at the anatomy of making this throw happen and what is happening right here. We have to go very slow with it because the reality is this thing attacks the base of the skull and the neck really awfully because of how helmets sit on the body and may or may not link in different places. You can already tell how my aventail is at my chin, so this automatically links my head back into place, and it can really knock me out into really nasty positions. So to show what this thing is about, first and foremost right here, Aaron is going to grab onto the visor, and what he does here with this all is when he grabs on, he's going to put his hands over the top portion of it. Now the reason why he's putting over the top, right, the leveraging portion here, is that when he pulls down, it's going to pull my head like this, right? So by putting over top here and grabbing here over top, he has a lot of control over the totality of my neck, my spine, and everything. Okay? So this is combining some of the nastiest things that we've seen in armor so far in conjunction to other things with this right here. It is especially brutal. And again, please don't try this at home or mess with it, because the reality is it has got a lot of horrible things that can happen to it. We're going to talk about here again. So why might I have my visor up? It's because I might be, either A, he's ripped it up, I pushed it up, or I didn't put it down to begin with because I wanted to be able to see better within fighting. So again, in this space right here, the big thing that happens with this is if my visor is down, if we find ourselves into the clinch, what ends up happening here is Mr. Aaron is going to try to find a way to push up the visor and grab to the top portion as well. He pushes up, grabs right here, and then this is the part that's very nasty, which is why this is not necessarily me going for the leg, is that once he has that top portion right there, he steps back, which now we find ourselves in the position right here of what we see within the image. This means there was already a very close quarter conflict right here that kind of goes into play in regards to the nastiness of these sequences. So this can happen, again, person gets brained, gets brained again, then he lifts up the visor, grabs on top here, and yanks the person down. It could also be that maybe in the process of him turning my axe out, I've collapsed onto him, and in collapsing onto him, it turns into a grapple portion here where he's able to fight, push up, and then gain leverage over top of it. So the anatomy of what this thing is and what it does against somebody, it's really going to depend upon how the helmet is. You got to remember, helmets were different in different periods of times. There's ways of doing this otherwise right here, because even though he's grabbing my visor, he can still grab the back of my head and pull me down. So again, just to simulate, we're in the clinch. We're in the clinch here, and instead of grabbing my visor, he grabs the back of my head. And then pulls me forward down like this. The nasty thing about this right here is if my visor if I don't get my visor up, when I hit the ground, there's a good chance that I might eat dirt. My visor might spear the ground and bury itself in there, making it almost impossible for me to breathe out of that spot, which means that I'm trapped in position, and then he has a lot of opportunity to put weight on me and to deny me anything else in this. The other part that is really nasty about this right here is that as he pulls me down, if he gives a jerk like this, there's a good chance that the weight is going to ripple through my body. If we talked about how the body works here within and without armor, that by doing this kind of action right here, he's going to put immense torque onto the base of my skull, and in some cases may actually be successful in snapping my neck. So he's not going to do it here, but he's just going to show how he comes up this way, and as he pushes up, he might just drop the weight. Okay? And we'll do right here is, so when we go in, you'll drop the weight. I'm going to break fall forward. Okay? So in position, he pushes up the visor. He takes a step, he grabs up top of the visor all the way up top. And what he's going to do is, he's going to drop his weight down into port de ferro and step back, go for it. This is going to make me go forward down to the ground. That in itself was a controlled fall and actually really awful to experience. You can imagine if he actually did this for real, it's going to go straight down, potentially destroy my spine, and I'm going to have a hard day getting out of that situation right there. Not to mention he's already getting on top of me, potentially going for his dagger, finding his poleaxe or his buddies to ransom, kill, or whatever necessary to end that situation.
So as you can see with the video, the usage of someone's visor against them, like I said, the person's visor is either up, maybe I lift it up right here, I'm keeping it because I have to breathe, or I want to see, or the person's gotten close and has found a way to lift the visor and get into a spot to take the person to the ground. It is a very nasty experience, and having experienced it once in this type of training space, I have to tell you that again, I'm really glad I did not get a helmet to replicate this type of thing. because the reality is, and one thing that Aaron said is it is incredibly easy to actually grab the person here. It's really easy to get the person onto the ground on that. What I felt was at the ridge of my neck, my helmet pulling my head here, and it's fighting in a spot right here where legitimately that helmet and the spine is causing this. If that person yanked, all Aaron did was walk backwards into Porte di Ferro. You can imagine and Aaron's a big guy. You can imagine if he would have been angry, if we didn't know each other, and he grabs and he comes back, he doesn't just step back, he rips and snaps and makes the person kind of break their neck on the way down. Or just like, there's so many things that can happen with this. So really nasty play, really effective play. And again, one of the things I thought about is the guy going for a leg pick here in armor? I don't think so. He's showing the guy trying to gather himself as he's getting pulled down, which as I was watching the footage, making the videos, I was like, wow, talk about looking like part of the image right here. It's like, I definitely look like the guy that's being dragged down. And all he's doing is walking backwards. Not about a leg pick. It's about the effectiveness of that type of grab right there to go down. Now, again, like I said, if we remember the lessons of Abbracciare, Fiore tells us, to strike the person in painful spots, that cause a person harm, eyes, temples, etc., and to do it in areas that are unarmored. In this case right here, we're using armor against us to strike internally on somebody. Is this possible to do? Would it be possible for Aaron to have just grabbed the back of my helmet? Potentially, but you got to remember, it's slick, and not that you can't hold on to the person, not at all. But again, if that person's savvy and they worm their head out of it, well, maybe they get out of that hold a lot easier than you would have thought, and now you're right back into a fighting situation. That person realized what you just tried to do to them. Bad situation there. However, when it comes down to using a visor, that's something that someone may not expect. Maybe they do. I don't know. But the point being is being able to rip and yank that person to the ground, very effective. As always, attacking the eyes and other things here is also a possibility of it all. But because that would make the person, in my opinion, turn away or go back, that defeats the purpose of what the technique is, which is to bring the person down. So again, we're talking about being able to bring the person this way. So the effective strike in this is how the helmet of the person, of the wearer, like me in the video, is used against me, which cranks the necks and tears me down to the ground with effective ease. So again, like I said in the very beginning, I don't recommend people try this at all. If you want to take my word, like I said, you can take my word for it. It's nasty and like Aaron says, wow, that's very easy to bring you down. And it was a very controlled fall in that type of situation here. Is this something that happens off the first crossing? Potentially. Is this something that happens after a fight is pursued into grappling and everything else? Probably. We don't know. So it's just another thing that you can do. And why is it in the axe section? In my opinion, because if someone's using an axe against you, you want that person disarmed and on the ground fast. Already right there, we're seeing elements of dagger. Take the dagger away, strike the person, break the arm, bind them, break the arm, bind the arm, throw them to the ground. Oh, that was a mouthful. It's the same thing. Take the axe away. In this case, you're not breaking the arm, binding the arm, you're breaking the neck to bring them to the ground. And it's pretty nasty. So again, especially because this one right here also ties to the previous point. With that being the case here, everybody, a little bit long-winded, but I think this is a very important one because it's very, in my opinion, once again, it's a unique opportunity where once again, we see Fiore talk about how you use someone's armor against them, which is very important data when it comes down to the practice of Abbracciare. And I felt like this one here really requires a deep look and some discussion about that. Leave a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Have you ever trained this right here? What have your experience with this here? Tell me your thoughts. Love to hear it all right there. And as always, everybody, please, until I see you, train well out there. Be safe and fight on. I'll see you all soon.